Hey there, creepy peeps. My name is Nightmare Maven and I love talking about horror. I'm also a professional bookseller. That's my day job. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. Hopefully you like what you see, you stick around for a while, become a creepy peep today. For those of you that are returning, welcome back. So it is literally my day job to recommend books. So I asked y'all on Instagram to ask me for recommendations that I can then give to you. That made sense, yeah. So I'm gonna do my best to recommend some spooky stuff for you to read. So Jenna asked me to recommend the scariest book I've ever read, and I had an answer to that instantly, didn't even have to think about it. Scariest book I've ever read to date is Pen Pal by Dathan Auerbach. So this, I don't know if 100% of this book was originally published on the No Sleep subreddit. If that gives you any indication how scary this is, if it stood out enough on there to be published into a book. That's where this book got its start, at least. It isn't a normal narrative structure. It follows the main character through different points in his childhood and adolescence that all center around this like really horrifying thing that kept happening to him in the form of a stalker, kind of. That's all I'll really give away, but I just want to emphasize this is real life horror, not like there's nothing paranormal or anything going on. So the stuff happening in this book is very realistic, could easily happen to anybody, which makes it more terrifying. Ending to the first part of this book scared me so badly that I refused to read it at night or if I was alone in the house. So it could have been the middle of the day. If I was alone in the house, I was not gonna fucking touch this. So it took me a little bit to get through because yeah, I just had to make sure somebody else was in the house because it was that scary. I will always recommend Pen Pal if you want a really good scare. Kenzie asked for a good for her horror, I was gonna say horror movie, horror book with supernatural elements. I have two recommendations for this one. The first is, I would say like horror adjacent. Where I work, our system is a little bit confused and technically puts different editions of this book in different sections. One of them is listed for fiction, the other one is listed for horror. Same book, but that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Recognize the name. Leigh Bardugo wrote like the Six of Crows, Shadow and Bone series that got made into Netflix. This is an adult novel. It's not for teens. I mean, teens could read it, I guess. It's not too graphic. But anyways, this is a witchy, dark academia kind of fantasy book that follows a high school dropout, Alex, who is recruited by one of the most prestigious schools in the United States to become a student there. In exchange for her admission, she has to work for this secret society that is in charge of keeping tabs of all the other secret societies at Yale. All of these different houses or societies specialize in a certain type of magic. Once students start getting murdered and Alex's mentor goes missing, she has to figure everything out on her own. And it is very dark, has a lot of scary moments. As you can imagine with secret societies, without giving anything away, it's kind of a given that there is some corruption involved behind the scenes, and it always involves old white men, so especially when it comes to Ivy League secret societies. So I would highly recommend this one. The other one I'm going to recommend, I've talked about this one a lot, but I just wanted to mention it again. We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix. Our main protagonist, Chris, used to be in a mildly successful black metal band, and when one of her bandmates left to start a solo career, the band fell apart, and Terry, her bandmate, went on to have like all of this crazy success, which Chris finds out was at the expense of her and the other band members' souls. So Chris has to go and kick her former bandmate's ass to get back the recognition and the fame that was stolen from her. Very satisfying ending, very satisfying. CRS wanted a horror with good queer rep written by a queer person. And I will take any and all excuse to talk about my favorite thing is Monsters, which is a massive graphic novel that follows a young girl, Karen Reyes, who is obsessed with all things horror, all horror media, especially monsters. And one of the neighbors in her apartment complex is murdered, so she takes it upon herself to investigate that, and this is set in 1960s Chicago. So Karen sees herself in the book as this monstrous thing. I'm gonna try and find really quick. Why is every page I'm turning to not have Karen? So Karen sees herself as this monster, like she's got fangs and pointy ears and claws, which fits on a couple of different levels. She's an outcast at school because she likes all these weird things. You also do find out, which I feel like just recommending this gives it away, that Karen is queer. That's all I'll go into. And you know, growing up in the 1960s, you can imagine what that would do to a young queer kid's, you know, self-esteem. So that also plays a part in how she sees herself. It's really beautiful. All of the drawings are done in like ballpoint pen, I think, which is pretty cool. You should definitely look up, I'll link an article about the author and how, like, her story of creating this graphic novel, which is kind of wild. I think it ticks most of the boxes in CRS's request. The author identifies as bisexual, so it is a good queer representation from a queer author. So there were a number of you that asked for a good supernatural story, which, you know, led me to instantly think about another book that I will always recommend, which is The Hollowed Ones by Laura Bickle. This one is technically a YA horror, but whatever, it's still fun. Everybody loved Fear Street, and those are YA horror books, so I don't want to hear anything in the comments about how YA is not scary. So basically, this book takes place during a vampire apocalypse. You heard me correctly, vampire apocalypse, not zombies. And it's set in this closed off Amish community. So they are seemingly untouched by everything that's going on in the outside world. They kind of have no idea what's going on. They're not like completely cut off from the outside world, but they're, they don't have daily interactions with the communities outside of their own. So it takes them a while to figure out what's going on, and then they're kind of thrown into a little bit of chaos because, they lost all contact with people and they don't really understand the extent of what's happening. There are some truly terrifying moments in this book, as you can imagine. This particular Amish community in the book does not have electricity, so you can imagine like the scenes at night get really terrifying. It just shocked me how scary it was for a book that was YA. It's super atmospheric, super scary, and really random fact, I emailed the author to ask her some questions for a project for one of my degrees. It was at some point when I was still in school, and she's very nice, so I would highly recommend this book. Got room for one more recommendation here, another one that multiple people asked for, which is a slasher book recommendation. And I have to say, I haven't read too many books that I think would be considered slasher. If you're on Horror Book Talk, there are tons of like slasher book recommendations, but the closest ones I have that I would recommend to any of you, first is The Last Final Girl by Stephen Graham Jones. This one I have mixed feelings on. I didn't like absolutely love it. It's just the structure of the book, like the actual like format of the book, is a little strange and it takes some getting used to. It's very cinematic the way it's written. Very much an ode to all slasher movies. You can obviously, it's Stephen Graham Jones. He's a horror fan. You can tell it's written by a horror fan. It's quite a short read too, so I would definitely recommend this one. I would also recommend Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesar, and There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins for some YA slasher reads. I mean, I haven't read the Fear Street books, but if you liked the movies, I feel like these two books are really good options. I'm recommending these two YA books in particular because, kind of like the Hollowed ones, these ones shocked me that they were YA because I feel like they really danced that line. Like if these were movies, I feel like there would be some scenes that maybe would have had to be cut to make it PG-13. I think it really dances that line. Clown in a Cornfield was way gorier than I was expecting. Like genuinely buckets of blood in this one. There's Someone Inside Your House, again, kind of like the Hollowed ones, just had scenes that were horrifying. It's a little bit more on the home invasion side of things, but oh my god. The parts that genuinely gave me chills, and I really cannot wait until the movie adaptation. I think it's a movie, not a series. I know it's going to be on Netflix, I think, and James Wan is producing it, question mark. So those are just some horror book recommendations for you that you guys wanted. Of course, please leave your recommendations for any of those prompts in the comments. That's the beauty of this community, that you can get different recommendations from all of the different creepy peeps out there, because we all know that we all have an issue with our TBRs, right? Like, doesn't matter that I have all these books I need to read. If you recommend me something and it sounds good, I will buy it and just ignore all of this. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new here. Become a creepy peep today. I post 2 new videos a week on Mondays and Fridays, and then we have a live stream every Wednesday. If you missed last week's, I made a very adorable pumpkin diorama. Yes, that's a thing, and it was pretty awesome, I gotta say. So I'll see you very soon with a new video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.